Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I want to talk about one of the three original vampire elders, Amelia, and bring her story to you all today. Although Marcus and Viktor are the more prominent and well known of the elders, Amelia still led a rather meaningful life, but the difficulty with this character is she kind of falls into the shadow of the other two. Despite having such a limited role on screen, it didn't affect her popularity amongst fans, and after continuous feedback from the fans in wanting more of her, the franchise's creators actually incorporated her into later movies and did so rather brilliantly despite her death in the first Underworld movie. So let's take a look at her story from start to finish, including the impact she had after her death. Amelia was born sometime in the 6th century to Hungarian parents. Not much is known about her childhood, but she took a great interest in becoming a soldier, which was rather uncommon for a young girl at the time, nor was it welcomed. However, she insisted on training her skills with the sword and became quite a fierce warrior. She was recruited to the Hungarian warlord Viktor's army, but didn't serve long before he fell ill. Still, she stood out amongst all of his warriors due to her incredible skill. After Viktor was turned into the first vampire fledgling by Marcus in order to aid him in stopping his twin brother William the first werewolf, Amelia was turned along with every other member of Viktor's army. She strongly supported the capture of William and was also in favour of killing him, but for Marcus's arrangement that his brother was not to be harmed. After close to 800 years of roaming the countryside, William was finally captured by the Death Dealers, and Amelia was instrumental in the mission. She led the attack on William and organised her men in such a strategic fashion that they cornered William from all angles, attacking each of his limbs to weaken him. The werewolf was imprisoned for all time, and Amelia was rewarded for her centuries of loyal service, in addition to capturing William by becoming one of the three vampire elders alongside Viktor and Marcus. She allied with Viktor, and the two shared very similar views on how the vampire race should be directed, in addition to her distrust of Marcus, who longed to free his brother from his permanent imprisonment. To prevent infighting and disagreements over who was truly in charge, the three elders created a concept known as the Chain. One vampire elder would rule the coven for 100 years, while the other two slept for 2 centuries. When it was time for the ruling vampire to conclude their turn, the next elder would be woken in a ceremony where the slumbering vampire would pass their blood memories of all that has occurred to them. Amelia entered into a relationship with the vampire Thomas. It is unknown what the actual extent of their relationship was in later centuries, how much they were involved in each other's lives, if it was brief encounters every decade or so, it all remains unclear. They did, however, conceive a son in the 20th century during Amelia's 5th reign as coven ruler. After learning of the pregnancy, Amelia and Thomas travelled to the spiritual Nordic coven, a rather peaceful tribe of vampires, and they spent several months there before she gave birth to their son David. When suspicions of her absence began to arise, Samira was sent to the Nordic coven to look for her, but she had already left to return to the Eastern coven, and Thomas had already left too, taking their son with him as he returned to his coven. They kept their relationship a secret to protect David, as Thomas informed him that his mother was lowborn and had abandoned them both after giving birth. Amelia served out the rest of her term as coven ruler of the 20th century and began preparations to awake Marcus for his turn to rule. However, as Amelia and her guards returned from New York to begin the ceremony, her train was ambushed by the Lycans led by Rays. The mansion guards, who were sent to escort her, betrayed her and watched as Rays fatally wounded her and bled her dry. Amelia's death was a massive shock to those who weren't aware of Craven's betrayal, and instilled a fear upon the vampires of the coven due to how ruthless the Lycan attack was. Her body was recovered by the cleaners, a group of human mercenaries employed by Alexander Corvinus to essentially clean up any remnants of the vampire-like war from the humans. Her body lay on the Sancta Helena and was destroyed when the ship was blown up following Alexander's impending death. It's after her death in the latest Underworld installment Blood Wars that we truly see just how much of an impact she had during her time as a vampire elder. After arriving at the Nordic Coven with Selene, David finds out his true heritage when he learns that he is in fact Amelia's son and therefore the rightful heir to rule the Eastern Coven. Vidar, the Nordics' leader, informs David of how much they all valued his mother greatly, how much she loved David, and that her contribution to the Coven is the reason it still exists. Her death devastated the Nordic Coven, and Vidar additionally informs David that they all mourned Amelia's death for a month. David refuses to believe such a story and feels his true mother Amelia abandoned him just like his apparent low-born mother did. He's angered that she put the sake of the Coven over her relationship with him, but he's soon to discover the truth behind it all. Amelia left behind her prized sword, infused with silver, an extremely powerful weapon that would strike fear into any Lycan who's seen it, to David, along with a ring that contains a drop of her blood. After consuming the droplet, David discovers his mother was a fierce warrior who led the capture of William. He sees his birth and finally understands that Amelia hid her association with him in order to protect him from not just her Lycan enemies, but also her vampire ones within the Coven. The Eastern Coven had become very political, with lower ranking vampires lusting for power. Craven was the one who orchestrated her death in the first place, and with Samira also trying to seize power for herself and going as far as killing her own kind, the new vampire recruits, David can finally understand why his mother did what she did. David, when confronting Samira over her attempted coup of the Coven, was met with initial resistance until he provided vials of blood for the Vampire Council to view Amelia's memories and confirm his status as the last true heir. As you can see, Amelia had such a great impact during her life and even after death. The steps and measures she took basically saved the council and everyone present by being slaughtered by Samira and her recruits. I'm so happy that the Underworld creators gave in to fan pressure and incorporated Amelia into the story after her initial death. She was the only elder who really didn't come full circle, and it's great to see that she was truly valued by so many. I've created other videos on the other two elders, Viktor and Marcus, that I have in this playlist for you to watch right here. So let's continue the story of the three elders by visiting Viktor's story first, followed by Marcus, or whatever order you choose to view them in. Continue their story by clicking the card.